Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 1st, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Peckins, can you do the roll, please?
Hauser?
Yes.
Bixson?
Here.
Bachman?
Yes.
Klauser?
Yes.
Gasson? Kenjuk?
Yes.
Lloyd? Stone.
Okay, we have a quorum. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to line item number 3, public comment. Anyone would like to make a comment on a matter not on the agenda, please come up to the lectern. Rose, how about anyone online?
No one online, but your video is not coming through on our end.
Okay. All right. Is that gentleman in that room? Okay, work on that. Okay, so having no public comment, we will go to line item number 4, which is approval of the minutes. Consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
Support, anyone?
Great support.
Okay, Ms. Clauser, support. Discussion? Mr. Peckins, roll call, please.
Hauser?
Yes.
Bixson?
Yes.
Bachman?
Yes.
Klauser?
Yes.
Kenjuk?
Yes.
Okay. All right, number 5, public hearings. Notice of public hearing. This is the Eastman, 366 South Main. Consideration of a new patio expansion and facade change. Mr. City Manager.
Video's gonna take this one.
Okay. The City Planner, floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. The proposal before you tonight has been submitted by Jamal Hamoud on behalf of Desert Oasis LLC for the creation of an outdoor dining area. The site is located on the west side of Main Street Alley, just south of East 4th Street, and is zoned CBD, which is the Central Business District. The site is occupied by an existing restaurant that's on Main Street and that connects through an alley to the east towards where the patio is going to be through a public walkway. The applicant's proposal is to construct an outdoor patio that is approximately 198 square feet, 18 feet by 11 feet at the rear of the property. The plan is for the patio to accommodate 3 tables and 6 chairs total for the seating. The dining is proposed from May through October as allowed by our ordinance, and hours of operation are 5 p.m. through 11 p.m. Wednesday and Thursday, and 5 p.m. through 12 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, which is in compliance with the ordinance standards. Now, the outdoor patio is to be placed on a 6-inch thick concrete platform that is going to be placed on top of an existing brick paver area that currently is on the rear of the building itself. The outdoor patio is to be enclosed by black powder-coated steel or aluminum railings. The height of the railing is not noted, and that needs to be in compliance with whatever the building code dictates. The one thing we did want to point out was on this sheet, there is a note here that's saying simple structure to be determined for lights and planters. We just wanted the applicant to be aware that once the structure is shown on elevations or rendering presented before the Planning Commission and the Planning Commission takes action on it, the structure cannot subsequently be modified unless they come back in front of Planning Commission. So the words to be determined really needs to be removed, and if this is what the applicant intends to build, or if this is what the Planning Commission approves tonight, this must be built. We wanted to note that during off-season, per the ordinance, the furniture needs to be stored inside somewhere in the building and not left outside during the winter. With regard to parking, the site has no dedicated parking and is typically exempt from parking since it's in the Central Business District, as long as the seating capacity of the restaurant remains the same. Parking for the outdoor patio area is required only if the seating exceeds 25% of the internal seating capacity. Per the notes on the site plan, the Eastman Cafe's current occupancy is 40 people, and the inside and the outdoor patio has got only 6 seats, which is approximately 15%. A small minor correction, the use of the greater greater than, less than symbol here is incorrect. This basically says that the seating capacity of the patio is greater than 25% instead of lesser than. It's just a minor typo, but I did want to point that out. At this time, the applicant is proposing no audiovisual equipment for the outside. Lighting will be through a series of string market lights. These do have an exposed bulb, however, the illumination intensity is extremely low. They are installed more for ambience and not really for high levels of illumination. So we believe they meet the intent of the ordinance. And finally, with regard to the facade change, the applicant is proposing to install, if you look over here on the rear of the building, a new bifold door. There is going to be a new bifold door that provides access to the interior of the building. And this area is going to be ramped, so you still have barrier-free access to the building. Barrier-free access can also be accomplished from the inside of the building to the outdoor patio area itself. The one thing we did want clarification on was the installation of the steel black structure will require removal of this red awning that's on the rear of the building. There is no clarification on what the applicant plans to do to the wall, because when the awning is removed, there are likely to be bolt holes and some structural repair that needs to be done to the wall. So we'd like the applicant to provide clarification if the awning is removed, that the wall will be cleaned up and will be repaired as necessary before installation of this railing system. Based upon review of our proposal, we recommend that the Planning Commission grants site plan and special exception approval for the outdoor dining area for the restaurant located at 336 South Main Street, subject to 4 conditions. The first being installation of railing in compliance with building code height requirements, removal of outdoor furniture and storage elsewhere, when patio is not in operation, clarification regarding removal of the awning and repair of the rear wall if needed, and finally, applicant's acknowledgement that the site design elements cannot be changed after Planning Commission's approval. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for City Planner? Mr. Kenzik?
Yes, hi Vidya, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
A question regarding the pavers, is that, I'm not familiar with that being a sub-base for a concrete floor, but is that normal or is it acceptable?
There is nothing in our ordinance that says they cannot do that, but with regard to structurally how the concrete is going to be attached to the paver, I would actually defer to the applicant or the applicant's architect to come and explain that, if the pavers are going to be removed or if the concrete slab is a single piece that's going to be bolted on top of the pavers. I'm not sure exactly how it is structurally engineered. The applicant should be able to answer that for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
First of all, please state your name and for the record.
sure, yeah. Nathan Hamoud, on behalf of the Eastman and Desert Oasis, the building owner as well.
Good evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, I mean, per the architect's plans, I do believe there will be some demo to address that. It should be, pretty minimal and should be achievable with the way they've laid it out.
Are you gonna remove them? You don't know if they're removing them too?
I don't know offhand, honestly, if they're gonna need to remove them or.
I don't think they do.
Yeah,
I think it's just a box over.
Right.
Commissioners, any other questions for City Planner before we get to the applicant?
Maybe one question for the city, just a safety question. So I drove by the alley today, and there happened to be a box truck right in front of this location in the alley. And it was parked in such a way as I think it would probably park when this railing is put up. And the tires were over the line for loading, and it's pretty tight there on the other side of that truck trying to get vehicles through. And I'm wondering if this structure is going to cause these, delivery trucks to encroach further into the alleyway.
If I may,
Sure,
good
Mr.
question. We deal with this up and down the alley, so each one's individual. Most of them have things right at the property line, so they just have to adjust the truck movements. There actually was a sign on that pole we've moved twice now. When Bologna's put their outdoor dining there, we shifted it back because there was nothing in front of Desert Oasis, and then we have to probably shift it again. So as long they can't with that on the property line, they can't go in any deeper, so it's a struggle on both sides. A lot of people have to be responsible where they park the trucks, but we don't, if it's a problem, we get a phone call, and the police goes out there and asks them politely to move, so this will not create any circumstance other than what's been going on out there for 50 years. So
Okay.
we're okay with it.
And are there any safety concerns for the patrons themselves? I mean, it's tight corridors, you know, trucks backing up. I think the only other location with, you know, at grade or, you know, for all intents and purposes, this will be at grade 6 inches above, I think is Hemingway on Second Street that has one table immediately adjacent to that alleyway heading south. So, I mean, is that a concern at all? Okay. Oh, sorry, one last question. It doesn't look like there's any exit from the decking itself, so patrons are gonna have to go back into the building and come out. I'm just recalling my experiences at other establishments. I'm usually accustomed to seeing some type of an exit that's not required.
Yeah, actually, we don't want them with liquor in this one. They can't have an access point, now they have to go back inside to come out. So.
Okay,
I have a.
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Question maybe for the applicant. This is for the Eastman, correct? Is this going to be utilized by Desert Oasis?
It is not, yeah,
Okay.
it'll be for the Eastman.
And the
Yeah.
hours of operation for the Eastman are different than Desert Oasis, right?
Correct, yeah, so it's also, you know, evenings is
What
the
times?
focus there. So from 5 until 11, and then 5 until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay, so the likelihood of deliveries at 5 to then probably on the lower side,
Right,
then, right?
also decreases there
Okay.
for sure, yeah.
All right.
And we tend to, you know, delivery vehicles, we tend to ask that they tuck in as far as they can just for extra space, but that alley line is generally wide enough to where even without that, they're well within that line.
And I've got a question maybe for city manager. When they're constructing this and they go out and take those measurements from the back of the wall out towards the patio into the alley, does someone go out there and verify the distance to make sure that they're not encroaching beyond into that right of way?
Absolutely, building official does that, but when we restrike it, we set all the
Okay.
things out there, so we know where everything is control point wise.
Okay.
And again, I would just ask the petitioner to agree to the terms that
I will.
Lydia said.
Yep. And so you heard the terms that were laid out?
Yes.
As conditions. You understood those terms?
Yeah.
And you agreed to follow those terms, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Any questions about those terms?
No?
Not
Yeah.
trying to be a lawyer on you, but I just want to make
Sure,
sure.
sure. No,
Okay,
fair.
all right,
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you. All right.
Yeah.
That's just my day job. Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? No, Mr. Applicant or City Manager, anything else in your?
Public hearing open, and here we go.
Okay, so I guess what we would want is a motion to approve the, no, I'm sorry.
Open the public
Make it for a public hearing, I'm sorry. So we would have a motion to have this set for public hearing in the August?
No, open the public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I wasn't planning on sitting here today. So, okay, so I'm going to open at 7:14 the public comment. Public hearing. Any comments, any notes? Okay, none being heard. I will close them at 7:14. Okay, so discussion.
I just have one question. Since it's a special project, does it, then I have to go to city council?
Not a special project.
That's what it says.
Special exception.
Special exception,
That's
got it.
different, yeah. So no.
Okay. So,
Be looking for a
Yeah,
motion to
motion.
approve.
yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve the motion in front of us,
okay,
the site plan for, what we're talking about,
Eastman.
Eastman.
the Eastman, subject to those 4 conditions, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, Mr. Kensick, support. Okay, discussion? Mr. Peckins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Okay. Sorry about that confusion in that public hearing statement. Okay. Okay, next we're gonna go to considerations. We're gonna go a little bit outside the agenda here just for efficiency purposes. So we're gonna start with 6C, which is consideration of payment in lieu of parking for 314 South Main Street. Mr. City Manager.
Yep, I'll take that one. So this is a technicality, but we're asking to set the public hearing tonight. So in the former space that was at this location, and I'm gonna have the folks come up that are the owners, explain what they do in the sandwich shop and a bookstore, that was calculated at retail. And because figuring out their floor plan, what they're going to use here, part of it is a restaurant by our code, which made a deficiency of 1 parking spot. So we need to go through that process for the 1 spot. They would have to pay that on the $1,000 at time of getting a C of O. They've been great to work with. We're excited to have this new concept. We'll let them explain what it is. And tonight, we would look to set the public hearing for your August meeting. At that time, we would take action
It's one spot?
on the spot.
Okay, $1,000. Okay, is there anyone from the petitioner here, the applicant?
Come on up.
Okay, come on up to the lectern there. Just say your name and your address, please.
Tell us what you're doing.
Yes, tell us a little bit about the project here.
Well, my name's Elliot May. This is Rachel May, my wife. It's going to be a bookstore sandwich shop called Novel, and it'll be at 307 South Main. The sandwich portion of it is only about a little over 500 square feet. Everything in there is going to be ventless, so there's not going to be a deep fryer or a flat top or anything like that. So it's very efficient. With the book side of things, that's Rachel's. You
It's a
want to tell them a
small,
little bit about the bookstore?
small bookstore for not your Barnes and Noble, but more of your small mom and pop. With a lot of featured selections and small, we'll have some stuffed animals, stuff like that to bring some gifts in, not to compete with the other gift stores at all. I go in there a lot, so I try not to add those, but some art supplies. I know that ever since the art store downtown closed, there has been more of a need for gifts for kids and stuff like that, so filling that gap too. We've always just wanted to be on Main Street, so.
Yeah, it's going to be mainly a bookstore, and it's very limited in regards to the sandwiches. There's only 4 main sandwiches right now. The menu will change, especially as we grow with the seasons. It'll change. There's also a kids portion to the sandwiches as well. There's 4 kids sandwiches, so it's not a huge menu. It's mainly for books. There's places to lounge. Our initial idea was for it to be like a third place for people to not be at their house or at work, but somewhere to go and hang out and chill. There won't be alcohol served, so it'll be a sober book reading, sandwich eating, chill place.
Is it true there's a sandwich called the Mayor? I heard something about that.
Yeah, we're still working on that one. I have to get to know him a little more before I can perfect the sandwich.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
All
I like
right.
that.
Rachel and Elliot, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions or comments? No. Okay, so you're looking to have parking in lieu of 1,000?
No.
No,
Payment.
Payment.
Set a public hearing.
Set a public hearing, correct. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Okay. Any discussion on that? No? Okay, so I guess I'd be looking for a motion to,
It's for payment in lieu, but it's a public hearing setting.
right, public hearings. Okay, so we
I'll
look,
make a motion to
There you
set
go.
a public hearing to talk about payment in lieu in the August meeting.
okay, is there support?
Support.
Mr. Bachman, okay, any discussion? None being had. Mr. Peckins, roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Okay, Rachel and Elliot, thank you very much. We'll see you in August,
Thank you.
okay? Thanks for coming. Okay, so we'll go back up to 6A now. Okay, that's consideration of the Market Plus the Graham, 265 East Second Street. This is consideration of site plan approval. Mr. City Manager.
Yep, thank you. I'm very excited to bring this. It's been a journey for the DDA, and the chairman's here, our DDA director's here with the architectural team. This started, if you remember, a while ago with basically a front porch project. We're trying to create a gathering space. Christie's been looking for that place, a placemaking place. So we went through a bunch of iterations. It ended up going round and around, and we started, and an opportunity came up, which they'll explain in a minute, to purchase a building and take this to another level. That's what we're here tonight. So this is our first time looking at it. Again, we're asking to set a public hearing for August. We're on a pretty fast track to try to move forward. The city council has seen this and been part of that decision-making and helped guide together with the DDA board. They've seen it multiple times. Chairman Giovanelli's an I dotter and a T crosser, so he's been pushing, to keep this going. So great architects with AKA working together to get to this point. When you see this presentation, there's gonna be, and we don't get this a lot, in the presentation, due to public comment and the desires of the DDA and the city council, there's 2 things that, the way it had to be designed, will need a waiver from the zoning board of appeals. I write those cases. I've been part of this whole design process. I believe that they're supportable, they're minor technicalities. One was, you'll hear about sunshades, they want to do that. No good place on the site to do it, so we had to put it on a property line. which again, totally defensible. In my mind, we would go to the zoning board after. So if the plan commission, when you get to the public hearing next month, feels those things are important, then you would make your approval subject to a zoning board of appeals waiver. We don't go first, we go after. So again, just like, that's the journey ahead of us here. And tonight, I'm excited for you to see this presentation. It's really turned into something very special, so with that.
So just to be clear though, we're looking just to set this for public hearing in August, and if the planning commission feels that there's certain conditions that they want, that would be the time or place, and the August meeting, not necessarily this evening.
Correct, and this is why we're here, is to get input if there's
Sure.
anything that you, it's a complicated site.
Of course.
And talking about how we keep the existing parking lot, we're adding on to, et cetera, and, it's a complicated site, so we'll go through this journey together.
Okay, thank you, sir. Vidya, floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The request before you is from AKA Architects on behalf of, I shall share the site plan on the screen. It is on behalf of Rochester DDA to construct a 2,416 square foot addition to an existing 5,268 square foot building that would essentially connect this site to the existing DDA farmers parking lot over here, farmers market parking lot. The site is on the northwest corner of East 2nd Street and Water Street intersection. It's got an area of approximately 1.95 acres and is zoned I1, which is Industrial 1 district. This existing building that you see in light yellow labeled as renovated existing building is actually an existing legal non-conforming building that significantly encroaches into Water Street right-of-way. I'll go in a little bit into depth about the whole Water Street setup and the property line confusion in this area. It is a very unusual situation. Now, the zoning ordinance allows public facilities in the I1 district subject to special exception approval, subject to specific standards in the ordinance. The Planning Commission should be familiar with the site. This was the location of the proposed Brown Iron Brewery that you approved in 2023. You granted its site plan and special exception approval. Subsequently, I believe the finances for the project did not work out, so the project did not materialize, and the DDA had the opportunity to acquire the building and provide this long planned out open air market and public event space that the DDA had been planning for a really long time. And it finally worked out. They got the site that was right adjacent to their existing parking lot to make this into a cohesive site. We reviewed the proposal in detail. I just want to highlight some of the main points of it and point out a few things which I had wanted the applicant to address at the time I did the review letter. Since my review letter, the architect has addressed some of these comments. I will defer to the architect when they're making their presentation to address those. But I just want to hit the salient points of this project. Now, the subject property has got a very unusual property line. If you follow my cursor, the property line goes like this to the corner of East 2nd Street and Water Street. It goes up midway, and then it cuts across the street and moves into the First Street parcel. Now, this unusual situation is because Water Street actually is maintained by the City of Rochester. It belongs to the City of Rochester. It is a privately owned and maintained right-of-way, which is an unusual situation and an unusual condition. However, the right-of-way, the setbacks are measured from the established right-of-way. So when the applicant is proposing this addition, it technically does not meet the setback requirements from what would be anticipated as the right-of-way width of the privately maintained Water Street. So this portion of the building technically will require approval of a setback variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The required side rear yard setbacks in the I1 district are 25 feet, 15 feet for one side, 40 feet for the combined side yards, and 20 feet for the rear yard. If you look at the site outline over here where my cursor is, this actual faint dashed line is the outline of a shade structure that is going to go over these lots.
Vidya.
So during a special event, yes.
Vidya, this is Christian. There's some lag on your system. Your picture's frozen and your cursor's not moving. So having a little hard time following where you're going with the screen when you're talking.
We have this checked every week and it works. I don't
know.
I can't ever get this right. I don't know why.
Yeah. Can you hear us now? No.
Did you do it by the phone again?
It's very frustrating. We have CMTV in here. Still trying to-
Yeah, that's fine. We'll give it a second.
We have problems up here with our cable too sometimes.
Yeah, for instance, I can't get onto the internet. There's video. How are you?
Try again, Vid.
I apologize. I don't know why the system is suddenly doing this. I might just have to go and sit in a public library and do this so that the internet connection is stable. At my end, it shows that I have full bandwidth. I apologize. I don't know why it did that.
It might be us.
It might be on
Getting
our
back
end.
to-
It might be on our end video, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay. So the parking shade structure is represented by the small narrow rectangle that goes over the parking spaces on the west side of the site. It's a shade structure that is intended to be used during special events when under the shade structure there will probably be vendors during the farmers market or any special event when the stage is being used on the site itself. So the shade structure is actually located at a 0-foot setback from the site property line. So as Nick previously mentioned, a setback variance will be required not only for the proposed building addition up here, but it will also be required for the shade structure that is over these parking spaces. The site has an existing dumpster that is along Water Street. This was previously discussed in detail at the time the Planning Commission reviewed the Brown Iron Brewery. Because of its unusual location, it is unavoidable for a trash truck to use Water Street right of way to navigate in and out of the space. At the time, the Planning Commission had determined that an improved site design would be to extend this landscape island further at the corner of East 2nd Street and Water Street. Currently, this portion of the island does not exist. This eliminates one parking space that is actually right at the street right now, and addition of this green space. Striping of the crosswalk across the new sidewalk that is going to go on Water Street. This provides for a full sidewalk connection along the front of the farmers market parcel, going all the way down to East 2nd Street and connecting to the sidewalk on East 2nd Street. This is an existing non-conforming situation. However, the dumpster cannot be relocated to anywhere else on site, which would still make it accessible and usable to the whole building without impacting other site circulation. The applicant has submitted a circulation plan for the site for loading unloading activity, and it is functional. One clarification we had requested was when a special event takes place on the stage, if there is a concert or anything, where will loading unloading activity take place? I'm guessing it will likely take place right in front of it before the start of the event, but that's a clarification the applicant needs to provide. Since this is an open air market, there is no specific category in our zoning ordinance under which we can classify this for determining parking requirements. So based on the ordinance, the Planning Commission can make a determination that another standard that is as close or similar to an open market use would be applicable. So the site plan basically notes that parking calculations are based on occupancy load, one space for every 3 people under maximum occupancy. And this is basically a standard in our zoning ordinance from any place that is a gathering space. If it's a gathering space, that's the standard in our ordinance. And we believe an open air market, that would be the closest analogy to it. Since this renovated building on its interior will have vendor spaces, and the proposed building addition is basically storage, mechanical rooms, and restrooms itself. Going to the colored rendering of this proposal, I will scroll to the colored rendering. The applicant has provided very detailed images of how the site will look once it is completed, sort of giving it a clear visual reference. So this would be the full building, and this would be the open existing building with these garage door openings that will serve as the vendor market for the open air market. This portion will be the new stage that is being constructed, And this portion is the addition that will house the mechanical rooms, the restrooms, and any of the storage rooms. As in the case of the Brown Iron Brewery, which you previously reviewed, the frontage along East 2nd Street will have a small concrete patio with a few tables, umbrellas, and shades. The applicant has provided details of those umbrella, shades, and other outdoor amenities that will be on the site, which work well with the use of the site and the appearance of the site. During the course of events, the applicant has clarified that the main parking lot, I will go back to the main parking lot image itself. If I may, it is the main parking lot image. During the course of any special events, this entire main parking lot will be closed off and it will be occupied by vendor stalls too. So none of the parking spaces that are available in this main lot will be available during any events. We wanted the applicant to make that clarification on the site plan so that the Planning Commission understands and any future reference to the plan would be clear that during special events, this portion of the parking lot will be cordoned off and used specifically for outdoor displays only. So as I previously mentioned, the existing dumpster is constructed of masonry, but the wooden gates are in a state of disrepair. We have asked the applicant to add new vinyl gates similar to what was previously approved for the site. The proposed hours of operation for the farmers market is from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays from May through October. In November and December, the holiday farmers market will be conducted once or twice a week by the DDA. Special events will be held here after approval from the City Council and would typically conclude by 11 p.m. at night. The stage will have audiovisual equipment, all music systems. The plan does note that the DDA will comply with the city's noise ordinance and time limits on the noise generated from the site. The applicant has submitted a detailed photometric plan for the site, and there are existing street light poles along the site's frontage. In addition to that, the underside of the proposed parking shade structure will be illuminated, as will the interior of the renovated building and the covered stage area. We had asked the applicant to adjust some of the illumination intensities on the site, and at this time, we believe the illumination provided on the site is compliant. Even though the parking shade structure is close to the property line on the west, the property to the west is occupied by Huntington Bank, and typically bank sites always prefer more illumination than less, just for safety and security purposes. And finally, the applicant, as I mentioned, has submitted detailed renderings that show the landscaping on the site and the proposed improvements to the site. So overall, the applicant has taken time and effort to put together a site plan that tries to make the site function perfectly for what the DDA envisions the site to be, while working with the challenges of having an existing legally non-conforming building onto which they are adding on, and something that has got a very unusual property line configuration along Water Street. Based upon our review of the proposal, it is our recommendation that the Planning Commission place this for public hearing and consideration of site plan and special exception approval at your next available Planning Commission meeting. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Commissioners, any questions for the planner?
Mr. Chairman, can I,
Sure.
I may just,
Sure, Mr. Payne.
Video, one clarification. So I'm going to do my inner Mr. Gasson right now. So handicap accessibility. So it's a very challenging site with grades, right? So if you zoom in just a little bit, if you can see to the left of the light yellow, that's where the handicap spaces are going to be in the auxiliary lot. They can go along the sidewalk, and then there's a ramp. You can see that diagonal at the top between the two properties. Yep. You go up that sidewalk there. So the intent is even during events to keep the handicap parking available at all times and then just barricade to the north of that. So that's because there's no really good handicap parking in the farmers market lot, especially obviously when the market's going on. So that's the intention. There's a line there that goes across. We'll make sure that's clear on the plan that that's where the handicap accessibility is for both sites. So I just wanted to add
It's
that.
interesting you said, because several note I made, one of them though was particular. How are you going to cordon that off during special events? So cars don't drive in, or frankly, any car tries to drive in there?
Yeah, it would just be handicap parking only there.
Okay, and there'll be demarcation lines, or somehow there'll be a barrier to note that. Okay, we'll wait for that. Any commissioners, any questions? Mr. Kinzick, go right ahead.
Yes, I do. Vidya, are there any standards in terms of the amount of bathroom facilities for any type of public gathering?
It is not dictated by the planning or zoning code, Mr. Kenchik. The building code might have certain requirements. I believe that is the reason for building the proposed building addition, which will actually have restrooms for men and women and unisex bathrooms. But under the planning, under zoning code, there is no such requirement.
Could you go to
Can I answer a little bit more on that, Mr. Kendrick? So building, they met with the building department, the architect already. So one of the goals of the charrettes that we had, or the community input sessions, is nice to have public bathrooms there. So there's bathrooms that will be accessible when the market's not even open. So there's an excess technically of bathrooms. And again, building code's gonna talk about that. But again, there's outside entry points to the bathrooms, and then there's also bathrooms inside the Graham. They can talk about that when they come up here. So.
Well, my concern is here on page A101, if I'm interpreting these drawings correctly, there's only basically, beyond the unisex bathroom, you've got 3 toilets, or you got 2 toilets and or 3 toilets for the women, and then you got 2 urinals and a toilet for the men's bathroom, and I just personally don't think that's gonna be enough for a large public event, especially at times, like, if you have movies or something at the end of the night and people are leaving, we're gonna have lines.
So right now we have 0. Maybe we get porta potties. So, but the architect can explain that. So.
Good evening, Steve Auger, Client Eller Architects. The plumbing in this is through the Michigan Building Code, and that plumbing represents 360 people. So that is the amount for 360. So that's our reference. That's the maximum capacity of that assembly area. So that's what we sized it up.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Just when you say maximum capacity, what area are you talking about? The parking lot?
The yellow.
The yellow. Well,
So that's what the building code will force us to do.
okay, so the light yellow, the
light
square,
yellow, correct.
that's the capacity. So when the bathrooms are taken into consideration, you do not use patrons of the farmer's market on a Saturday, is that correct?
No, the bathrooms would be open to the public
Okay,
all the time.
all right, so that's not a function or a factor in the
correct,
formula.
correct.
Okay,
But I might be able to help with this.
Okay.
Christy Jabbar with the DDA. Hi.
Yes.
So we host both the Farmers Market, Movies in the Moonlight, Halloween Fest, all at that market, and we run all of those events with one handicap accessible porta potty and one regular porta potty. At the Farmers Market, we expect and see an average of 2,000 people a Saturday, and I work a lot of those Saturdays, and I very rarely see a line at the portables. So having actual bathrooms that people can go into and having them readily available, I don't think is gonna be an issue. Same thing at Movies in the Moonlight, we get anywhere from 500 to 700 people a night. You might see a few people waiting by the porta potty, but that's because, again, there's only 2, but I think if we now have, 7 plus a unisex, I think we're gonna be perfectly fine. Anytime that we're using the Graham building itself, I don't imagine, even though we're allowed in theory to put 360 people, that seems highly uncomfortable to me. And I don't think we're gonna put that many people in that building at any given time, because we have to accommodate 4 tables and setups of vendors and things like that. So it's more than triple what we already have out there, and I think as far as our experience has been working in that market with events for the last 25 years, I think that it's gonna be more than adequate for what we need.
Mr. Kenzick, any further questions on the bathrooms?
No real question, I hope they're right,
Yeah.
doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, we all do, obviously, so. Okay.
I had the same thought as you. That was my impression, but that's very helpful to know. So, seems like it's a non-issue. Do you know how many spaces we're gonna lose in the parking lot with the stage?
They're gonna go through a presentation.
Yeah, we're gonna go,
I'm sorry.
yep, so I'm gonna have them come up, but this
Okay.
is more for city planner. Any questions for video right now?
So real quick question, so if we approve the site plan, then it has to go to the ZBA?
For the shade shelters and then that one little 7-foot
The
section.
encroachment on the other side, on Water Street.
So in theory, what if the ZBA said no?
Then you wouldn't build the shade structures, and they'd they'd either have to come back to the planning commission for a notch in the building in that little spot. Or they could give an alternate, we could do an alternate now, when they come back for public hearing, showing if it's not approved, take off the shade shelters and then have a notch in the building. It's not the whole building, it's a little teeny 7-foot.
7 feet, right?
So Nick, if the zoning board of appeals denies the variance, the applicant will have to come back before the planning commission for a new site plan approval. It works all or nothing. It will not work piecemeal. So of course, if the planning commission approves the setback for the building addition, but not the shade, they'll just have to get rid of the shade. They can still proceed. But if the ZBA denies both the building addition setback and the setback for the shade, they'll have to come back before the planning commission for new site plan approval.
I would disagree, because if they gave a sheet that showed if we aren't approved, 3 sheets. What they want, one with the shade shelter is gone, there's no waiver if they're gone, so you just show parking. That'd be Plan B. Plan C would be shelter stays and then a notch in that 7 feet, and get that approved at the public hearing, so that's alternate A and C. I would try it that way, because you're right, otherwise you'd have to come back.
Right.
If they want to wait, they could come back, but I'm just trying to get ahead of this. Would you agree with that?
So Nick, you're saying the planning commission will approve multiple options should the ZBA variance not be granted in full?
That would be my recommendation if they don't want to come back for one more meeting, so.
Okay.
They don't have to, you come back. If they get denied, they could come back one more meeting.
I see both sides, and I think I'm leaning more towards the city manager, no offense, Vidya, but I'm thinking if all the cards are up on the table.
That's fine.
And we could say, okay, this is a scenario if A happens, this is B scenario, this is C, we can kind of just move it forward a little bit. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it, I suppose, momentarily, so, okay.
That would be acceptable, Mr. Chairman, as long as the planning commission gets to see all the options and act on it. They can approve a site plan conditioned upon the variances being approved, and should the variance be denied, if the planning commission already gets to see what that plan will look like, they wouldn't need to come back before you. I was just saying, in case this is the only plan the applicant is going to proceed with no other options, in that case, they'll have to come back to you.
Right.
Agree 100%.
I don't think anyone on here would approve something sight unseen. Okay, all right, so that being said, any other questions for Vidya from the commissioners? Otherwise, I would like to have the applicant come up and tell us a little bit more.
Good evening, Commission. Ben Giovanelli, Chair of the Rochester Downtown Development Authority. Been multiple years in the making for us to be here this evening. We're really happy to present this to you. I think it's not a secret in town. We've been trying to get after this. But there's a lot of, as the mayor often knows, no good deed goes unpunished. So every time we turn over a stone, we find something else. So, but we're very, very excited about the project. And I think that Steve and his team have done a fantastic job. The parcel is challenged. It's an odd shape. There was all kinds of crazy title issues from the 1910s and 20s that we had to go through and sort, but we've got all of that behind us now, and really this is just sort of, we're at the 5-yard line about to punch it in the end zone. So hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions this evening and provide some clarity and some guidance as we sort of move forward. So
Certainly.
with that.
Okay.
Steve?
So there was some questions. First, we're very excited about this project. For those of you know the history of this, and initially this project was going to take that whole parking lot. So this is a total win-win. We keep the parking in the downtown district, and we get the amenities that the DDA needs and deserves, quite frankly. That farmers market's phenomenal. So there's some questions about parking. There's 115 spaces out there right now. This proposal is going to take out 18 spaces to get that stage area in the front apron in. But the building as it parks only requires 90 spaces, so it still parks correctly. So we have seven over on the parking count. So that was the one question that. So the building self-sustains itself. We don't need any variances for that issue. And Chrissy's gonna manage it beautifully. The other thing is the ADA. We talked about the ADA, and this allows us to activate that parking site and makes a connection between the two levels of the city. So I think that's a big win too for those that need that kind of assistance. We talked about the loading. Correct, we have the commercial loading on the back side, on the working side of the building there, on the south side, and any minor vans in that pulling up in their mini micro vans or whatever they've got, they'll be able to unload directly right there with small handheld stuff. But major stuff will go through the loading dock and then onto the stage. Did I miss anything?
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
There's a I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Clauser, go ahead.
Just curious, you mentioned the farmer's market and the Kris Kringle market, movies in moonlight. I go to that. You think I would know what it was called. What other activities do you see going on in that space, and specifically even the concert stage or?
Sure. So there's lots of answers to that question. Obviously, we've already been activating this parking lot for 25 years now because it was one of those things that we needed a place to go. And as you know, anytime we have an event, we either have to close a parking lot or a street. We're kind of like nomads at this point. So we do have a lot of events that are happening downtown already. So first and foremost, we're going to be evaluating all of those events to see what we can pull off the streets and move down into this site, because we wanted to make that more efficient. We always hear from people like that live here that the park, they don't like that there's so many events in the park. Because it's their park, they want to use it. Same thing with downtown. Every time we close a street, then it's inconveniencing people, even though they love the different things that we do. We're trying to figure out a balance of what belongs uptown because it has a certain benefit to the businesses, and what are more the friend-raising things that we do, more awareness building, like the farmer's market, like movies, things like that. When we've been talking about the market and the Graham, just to give you a little bit of context, the reason we're calling it the Graham is actually in honor of James Graham. The Graham family was the founding family of Rochester back in 1817. And their actual log cabin that they built is in the upper farmer's market lot currently, so it looks over our site. And so when we were redoing these things and we had to pivot back in February, the chairman said, hey, you know, history is a nice thing. What about that Graham guy? So I called our friend Pat McKay at the Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm, who knows everything about everything Rochester. And he let us know that James Graham, yes, confirmed that his family, first founder, first child born in Rochester, location of the log cabin. He said, but beyond that, there isn't much you can hang your hat on. Good guy, farmer, but really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. So then we started talking it through, and he said, you know, but really, the Graham name, you could make it more emblematic, because Rochester is known for innovators and inventors and farmers and all the things that happened that have brought Rochester our 200 years plus. And so that's when we started building out the idea of that, the market and the Graham, that we're really going to be trying to do community-based, but also food-based, farm-based, trying to really lean in on that local place, but trying to do more things than what we have. The farmers market currently is sold out. We can fit people in here and there, but we're a makers-only market, and so a growers-only market, so it's all farmers. So when you go in March, you're not going to find anything. You go in May, you'll start seeing flowers, maybe a little rhubarb, and then we start hitting our season, and so we transition. But we have outgrown our space, but we have nowhere else to go. So we're going to be using the Graham on Saturdays to then, when it's time for produce season, we can start putting more things in there. We have a lot of specialty food vendors that have been coming along over the years that can't have things outside, like fudge and chocolate. Some cookies, some things you don't want to have that are temperature sensitive. So our plan initially is then to roll off of our farmers market season that ends at the end of October and roll into a holiday market that would run in November and December strictly inside the Graham building. We don't know how many days are appropriate. We had piloted this with our help of our friend the fire chief, hi John, where he actually let us take over the fire department for a couple seasons, and we would be in there on Thursday nights and have some of our farmers and then also some crafters that were local that did ornaments and gifts and things like that. It was well received, but unfortunately, I love the venue, but you know, having fire trucks pull out in the middle of an event, it's a little sketchy, a little odd, even though the kids are like hanging on the fire trucks, but we knew that we had something else that we wanted to do. So we're gonna try and bring that concept back, do that inside the Graham, hopefully 1 or 2 days a week for the holiday season, because a lot of our vendors at the farmers market, they have hot houses, they have other businesses that go into greens and trees and specialty foods for the holiday. Then swinging up there, hopefully Fire and Ice or some version of it. We'll be living there in January. February, March, we're talking about some indoor events, again, the food-based things that relate to history that we might be able to be doing inside that event, that venue, as we're waiting for produce to come along. I don't think that there's anyone that has an appetite for going away from our traditional farmers market roots. We support the farmers the makers, the creators, rather than people that can get a space and go down to Eastern Market and buy the produce. That's not our story, that's not who we are, and so we're gonna keep doing those types of things. We wanna bring back farm to table dinners, which we're super excited about. If anyone ever went to those, we did those on Walnut. And it seemed like I was really great at picking dates, and it either was a torrential rainstorm or it was about 100 degrees. Super hot, super great. So indoors with air conditioning is gonna be great there as well. We're not looking at this as a rentable space. We don't want people to be able to come and say, oh, I wanna do my reception here, I wanna do this. That's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to find more things that we can do there to bring the community together. When Nob was up there talking about third place, that's essentially what we're trying to do, but in a different way. This started many years ago when we did some visioning sessions, and people talked about that. They love what we had, but we needed more places to gather, more ways they can see their friends and neighbors. And the farmers market seemed to be the touchstone of all of that. Hey, I go to the farmers market every Saturday. I see my friends and neighbors. I want more of that. And so that's what we're looking at with our lens. And as my chairman always says, we want the community to help us decide what this space becomes, how they want to use it. Because I think that once we do some different programming, we have a lot of other ideas in the hopper, roll some things out, see what sticks, what doesn't, and then amplify those things. With regard to the stage, we're super excited because right now we're literally plugging in speakers with 100 feet of extension cord that goes up into a box that's filled with wasps in the upper lot. So we're excited that we can just have plug something in. I know, well, like I said, we're nomads, but we do what we do. If you wouldn't know the backstory of all the things DDA does, we're on a budget, but we want to produce all these things. So we're looking forward to having a stage that now, for instance, the Halloween Fest, we've already been talking about, believe it or not, there are Halloween bands. So for our Halloween Fest, that we take over that lot with 1,000 families with their little kiddos running around, and we have the giant skeletons that are gonna flank either side of the stage, that we could actually bring in a Halloween band and do something more there. That's a place that we could actually, in the wintertime, put up our movie screen, but it's undercover, and we could do a drive-in. And we could do that when the winter changes seasons. So we have lots of ideas. I think that we have a lot of things we wanna roll out at the beginning, see what things wanna come from uptown, downtown, into that area, and then see where the community wants to take us. But we think that if we stay with what we talked about, with our farmers' roots, our history, community guiding us, I think that we're gonna come up with something that everyone's gonna be able to be super proud of. And I hope that really long answer answers everything you wanted. Sometimes I roll and I can't stop.
No, it did. Okay. I like that you are expanding community events instead of renting it out.
Yeah, we're excited.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I'll take a couple.
Go ahead, yeah, please.
If it's time. So, based on that wonderful explanation of what's to come, to continue off of that, looking at the image, I want to understand the covered parking a little bit better. That must be temporary then in the upper lot. Those are just temporary awnings for farmers market?
Right, so,
Okay.
The initial plan was to have those structures down in the regular parking lot, but the way that the property was configured, it was actually easier to put them up across from, there's a picture, I don't know where it's at, if we've got it, but it's got the Tivoli lights across it. The idea was, at least with council and DDA, is that to have a structure kind of like a carport, which I know some people, there's like a love-hate relationship with it. In the summertime, I get it, but in the wintertime, having a heater underneath it and being able to activate that during Kris Kringle would just be killer. And lights going across from the building itself over to this structure. So that was plan A, and I understand that the owner of the bank was perfectly fine. He thought it was a great idea, so the property owner that would be abutting up to it was fine. Then we started going through the process, and it was decided that it was maybe we were making our lives more complicated than we needed to do, so let's go to the sale concept. So that was kind of version 2. I think to myself and the DDA board, I've got my vice chair and Mr. Tomaso's here this evening, also members of the DDA board. Everybody loved that idea of the hardscape, right? So I think not thinking about summer, but thinking of winter and all of the stuff that goes on down there, it's going to be fantastic to have that option. But that said, we're just trying to make everybody happy, right, at the same time. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's how the genesis of that got started.
Are you asking about those tents?
These are the ones I'm asking.
Oh, I thought you meant upstairs, up on the.
We're gonna get to those, Ben. 'Cause I've
Gotcha.
got a
Oh,
question.
sorry. Okay,
Stay
I'm
tuned.
sorry. No. So those was just an example of what would fit there during the week. Those aren't gonna be there. That is just a picture of farmer. In fact, it's gonna be a hodgepodge of tents. It's not gonna be all green uniform. They're
That's what I'm
8
asking.
by 8 or 10
I wasn't
by
sure
10.
if this is part of the project.
Yeah, no.
That would be wonderful to
I
have
hadn't thought of that
look
before,
like that.
but yeah, we put that
It'd be
there to kind
impressive.
of see how many we could fit on the space.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. There's an electric utility pole. I presume that's going to have to move based on the construction?
Correct, yes. The utility pole is going to move, and part of this program is to get water and electricity to all those poles. So we weren't running wires all over like they currently do. So we're going to formalize the whole electrical system on the site.
Okay, is there anything we need to know about that?
On the parking lot, there'll be plugs.
Yeah, we're gonna redo it, take it out, because basically right now it's a FEMA camp. We've got like stuff running all over the place, so trying to sort of settle that down a little bit. Yeah, right? Lots of extension cords all wrapped together. You've seen those pictures
And
like.
duct tape.
Exactly, yes.
We're not proud.
Yeah, hey man, whatever it takes. But no, we're gonna professionalize that. The lot's gonna be repaved as part of this process, and then we're gonna saw cut and run electric and water out to the corners. So that's the plan, so. And I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but part of the funding from this is also coming from a near $1 million grant from Oakland County, so I think that's important to know.
I think I have one more question.
Go right
if that's
ahead,
okay.
please.
Last one. So I'm super excited about this. I think a lot of us are, and it looks like a wonderful design. I'd love to hear your feedback on the stage doors. Look, very large, and there's 2 of them.
But there's only one of them.
Okay.
The other one's fake.
Yes.
Okay, for symmetry.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, just, I'm an accountant, not an artist, so I would have gone with just the one, but yeah, from a symmetry standpoint, the other one's completely fake.
Okay. And
We needed it to be so big because for us, and we are 3.5 ladies that are going to be running a lot of these things. And so we have a ramp there that we're going to be rolling up tents and heavy equipment and all those things. So we wanted the bigger doors so that we're not banging into the nice new building that we just built, but that we can easily get a lot of our things in there. We have to store 12-foot skeletons. And we have a 7-foot skelly dog this year, so cute. But also we store a lot of other things. Our basement just flooded at the studio this week, which was great. So our Santa throne and our nutcrackers and a lot of things are gonna move in that space too. But it's really to hold a lot of our bigger things, plus just to run the market on a daily basis. We have garden carts and we have our whole EBT office set up and a lot of tents and tables and chairs and all the things that move that a small door setup, which literally we're using that little red barn in the corner right now. And if you open it up, it's like a human Jenga. Like you couldn't put one more thing in there. So is that big, and then Steve bounced it out with a fake door so that it didn't look so out of place.
The door on the right is fake, the door on the left is excess, and there's a ramp that goes through there, and that
Yes.
doubles as the ADA on that side too, right?
Correct.
Yes.
and that's, the intent is like a metal track door?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
is
our
this a good time
inspiration
for
of this, you
feedback?
can kind of tell, but if you go down to Farmers Market, you'll see those 3 arches there as part of the design of Eastern Market and the good old Western Market, which I didn't even know was there. It's been long gone. But that was our inspiration. And, you know, the board wanted to have the building look like it's always been there. And the challenge, you know, going back in it, but the first iteration of this plan with front porch was we had to do just a boatload of excavation, and it would have taken the whole lot up. It wouldn't have been great. Have this piece of property fall on us at the time it did, and get the funding from Oakland County, it was like, this is divine intervention, right? So, so now we're just trying to make it happen. But yeah, so the door on the left is access, and it's also ramped to the side to Second Street. Is that where that goes down to? Yeah, I'm trying to get my bearing straight here. So that's also additional ADA. So on the left-hand side where the bathrooms are at, you've got ramp there, and then you've got ramp access on that side of the building as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh.
Mr. Mayor? Just a few. So, you know, when we go back and remember, in January, we were talking about a front porch project, okay? And then we pivoted very hard, and 6 months later, we have this, which I'm telling you, this is probably the 8th or 9th time I've seen it, and it gets better every time, okay? So I think this is really something that, once implemented, is gonna be fantastic in that area. I'm also very sensitive that time is of the essence, in a sense that you've got commitments to the seller, you've got commitments to your lender, and there's seasonal limitations as to when things can start, and I want to keep the process moving. That being said, I do have 2 minor concerns that were raised in this letter. One of them being is that covered carport in that parking lot that is in the existing building right now. And I spoke to a few people, and some people have reached out to me saying, hey, they really like that. Can you give us a clear reason why that has to go? Is it a setback issue? Is it what's, Mr. maybe City Manager, you could, just so we're all clear on what's.
Yeah, it's purely setback.
Okay.
It could be, it's gotta go on that property line, and we talked to the owner
Say
next door.
that property line, which property line are you?
The west property line, so it's,
Yes.
it's right below that one tree,
Yep.
you can see it straight down, they're just, they fit in a standard, 9x18 space, so you could park under there in theory. but,
Correct.
But there, it's just a structure, a carport.
Yeah, it actually goes to the end of the building, so it would be parallel with the end of the building there, so those 1, 2, 3, 4 spots, to the south, are not covered by that. And the initial pass of this was gonna be carports, not unlike the PD's got over here, right? Just sort
Right.
of structures, and, that parking is gonna be open during the week when there's nothing going on there, so if you're the lucky one that gets to work at 7:30 in the morning and your office is down there, you may get covered parking during the day, which is,
Right.
but then the handicapped on this side. So then, so that was the idea there, and it backs right up to the property line, and the property owner, Mr. Mitzenfeld, has been super supportive of that idea, so.
And in order to get that, because I understand there's an issue now, the applicant would have to go to the ZBA, is that correct?
Correct.
When is the earliest that applicant?
August 28th.
August
It's the
20.
Or it's the 21st, it's the third Wednesday of August.
Okay, all right, and then,
24th?
No, it has to be the fourth, we're DDA's third.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay,
You're
so
right,
the
makes sense.
end of August.
It's the last Wednesday of the month, right?
Okay,
So just so I'm clear, excuse me for a second.
Sure.
So, as for cadence, so tonight, then it goes public hearing in August, and then pending public hearing, then it would go to ZBA.
Correct.
Okay, and the ZBA issues are gonna be the existing nonconformance and then player to be named later.
okay.
Not the existing nonconformance, but the add-on.
Oh, the add-on, right,
so
right.
there's
Yeah,
two-
yeah.
You would be seeking two, correct?
And actually, you could see it's stepped in a little bit, so it's making it less non-conforming than the existing building. So that's another tool I'll use as my recommendation.
I mean, it's interesting because, we own all that property,
Well, so, putting my legal hat on, how can you have an encroachment on your own property? You know what I'm saying? If that property line, if I understood video before it broke out, crosses Water Street, is that correct?
No, if you can ride your cursor up there, it goes Water Street, it's not down at the bottom straight across, it goes up and then over. I don't know, it's hard to see with the.
It's a goofy lot.
Okay.
Chief Cieslik's here, so I'm not gonna hold it to him, but we actually own half his parking lot too.
That's true.
Okay, so, I guess, presuming, video, go right ahead, please.
So the reason why they need a setback variance is irrespective of who owns it, even if it's a private right-of-way, even if it's owned by the city of Rochester, it is a right-of-way. As such, it is somewhere which is meant for vehicles. So setbacks are always measured from rights of way, whether they are private or public. That is immaterial. That is why, even though it is owned by the city itself, both properties are owned by the city, yet this is a right-of-way. As such, it is an established area for vehicles to travel, so you do have to get the setback variance. But like Nick said, the proposed addition is going to be no greater non-conforming than what the existing building already is. So the negative impacts are not going to be anything. So a case can be made for it to the ZBA.
So it's de minimis then?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm not gonna say it in public, but we may have used the Brown Iron Brewery plans as some inspiration.
That's fine, okay. So, that being said, at least from my perspective, is the DDA prepared to, simultaneous with coming back to planning commission in August, to seek some type, and I guess, I understand that's gonna be the next thing.
Chicken or the egg, yeah.
But one of those things that coming back, you would bring three proposals to us, one as is, one with carport, and then not the cutout, and then flip-flop it. So we would have three options to pick from based on what zoning does in the future at the end of August.
It's only one more drawing. It would be in the dark yellow, would be the actual little drawing and make sure the elevation shows that.
Yeah.
The carports would just be gone. So that's just a note saying, if we don't get it, we're not gonna put them there. It'll just be remaining parking spots uncovered. The only little thing we'd have to do extra to draw would be on the dark yellow, just show how that stepped in 7 feet and what that does to the elevation. If they wanna do that, or they could not do that and come back after if it's not approved.
So, if I may, through the chair, so the thing that, and I don't do this, you guys do this for a living, I'm on the other side of it, right? But the existing nonconformance, the building that's there now, there's actually a corner of that in theory would have to, be hacked off? Is that
chopped
the
off.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No?
No, because it's an existing
Okay,
non-conforming.
all right, I just wanted to be clear on that one.
Okay, it's the existing one.
Yeah, because you can see the dotted line there, it
The
kind
light
of goes, so
yellow.
we, as,
Right, I could put, no, that stays, it's just the addition.
oh, okay, good deal. I mean, to hack it off, it's gonna look really goofy, so, we'll make sure that we have to have some sort of PowerPoint presentation to the community why we have this building that looks like a, you're right.
And I would be remiss too, I received a comment about, I believe it was some type of rain garden and some type of, displacement for the water and erosion, because I know the fire station gets a lot of water flowing down there. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, so existing conditions, no more pervious area, would love, if we were demolishing the whole parking lot and starting over, we would have underground storage. We check with the engineers, we check with Oakland County, because we're not touching it. Actually, we're taking out a little bit and adding more green space, then they do not have to comply with underground storage. So it's not gonna do anything to add or subtract from what's going on now. That, the fire station fix is a big sewer that we know right where it's gotta go, up on Third Street. That's gonna be dealt with. We're applying for a grant for that now, so
Yeah,
this
actually,
will not make it any worse.
So the city's comfortable that this development is not going to adversely impact the fire station?
That's correct.
Actually, I think it'll make it better, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna repave it, so
Yep.
we'll get a chance to repitch
Grade
the
it.
lot, because the
Divert
lot right now, it looks like, there was, significant earthquakes in the area, so.
And I'm sorry, I've got one other question, I apologize.
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
Of course you can.
The problem for the fire station is not this parking lot. The problem for the fire station is Second and Third Street. There are no storm sewers on either one of those.
Okay.
So it all drains from Main Street, down the street, to the fire station.
To you guys.
So the parking lot's not an issue.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So I understand the existing parking lot where the farmer's market takes place every Saturday, is that gonna be completely milled and removed and replaced? Okay, so that's gonna be a
We're gonna
whole new
saw cut,
parking
We're
lot.
gonna saw cut, run electric and water out, at least to one corner, if not both, and then redo the light poles.
And then restripe everything,
Yes, sir,
obviously.
absolutely.
Okay, and there'll be a gate that comes up the entrance,
Correct,
correct?
yeah, we're actually gonna make it much prettier than it is today.
Okay.
And improve that as well.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions or any feedback? Mr. Kensit, go right ahead, please.
I know this is not a question for this commission, but I'm still struggling with the setback, because in the end, I understand, at least from what I do understand, is setback, you want to have so much space between a couple of buildings or between a building and another lot or something of that nature. But in this particular case, what are we losing?
That's a great question.
We didn't ask that question, we don't know.
As a CPA, not an architect, I'm like, I mean, we own both sides of it, I don't understand, but whatever the rules are, we don't want to be treated any differently than anybody else, so that's very important. So.
And I think, Richard, that went to the question that I had, how do you encroach on your own property? As Vinnie explained, it's based on the right-of-way. That's the demarcation point, so,
Very odd.
yeah.
And ZBA likes odd because that's how you get variances.
And the attorney's like odd to get with property line stuff, it's been great. Well, we're good now.
We're not gonna put
We're
up with
good
your
now.
attorney bashing.
No, I know. No, we're good now. We're
Not
good
at
now.
this,
He
not
had
at this
great
meeting.
counsel and he got us
Yes.
sorted, so we're in good shape now. But there
Any
was
other
multiple
questions?
different angles and the county had different property lines and stuff, it was great.
Well, believe it or not, there's some similarities to your variance to a variance I got when I built my house. My back deck, there's supposed to be a 10-foot setback, and if I had built my deck, I would have had to cut the corner off the deck to make it conform. Got a variance, and I'm 6 feet off the lot line. But I got a vacant lot, or I got a common area next to me, so nobody sees it. Here, you got a street. Nobody's gonna see it.
A street that we own.
Right, so that's why we're moving forward with this, we feel confident that
Yeah.
we're really not affecting anything.
So the problem that we face as a public body, so we're trying to buy a piece of property, right? And I've got a seller who wants to close, and I told council when, knowing Dr. Becker's, the grist mills of government turn slowly, so we sort of expected this, right? But I told council that it's entirely likely that we're gonna have to close and buy this piece of property without these things in
Right.
place. And that's gonna come to fore, so, depending on how, our goal was to get some really good guidance from you guys this evening as to where, are we not okay? And then go to public hearing and do everything that we're supposed to do. But I'm sort of at a go, no-go place on the building right now. So our financing's in place, sellers motivated to sell. And, the fact that we're trying to do stuff, it really isn't on the sellers fault, it's on us, so.
So Ben, to your point, do you feel that you've gotten some guidance from us that you were looking for when you came here this evening?
I think so, based on the questions, I think largely we're aligned. Once again, the DDA is not looking to be treated any differently, right? We want to be subject, we are subject to the rules everybody else is, so we'll certainly follow them. But the setback issue, for me, to your point is, it's kind of goofy, only that we own both pieces of property, we're encroaching on ourselves, so, and I understand video and all the legal part of it, I understand it, but just from a common sense, it's like when I was back on council in the day, we'd pave a street, and then a year later, we'd tear it up, and people are like, why are you guys tearing that up? You just paved it, that kind of thing, right? So I want to make sure that if we have to do something to address that we're doing it properly. But I like the door number 1, door number 2, door number 3 approach, I think that's fantastic. Ideally, personally, I think to myself and everybody in the DDA board, and I think certainly a majority on council would love to have the way we presented the renderings back in the day with the hard structures over there with the utility lights and stuff. It looked awesome. So, but we'll see. We don't know.
Okay, Ms. Clauser?
I just have a couple things to consider for the space. So I should start with, I really like this. I think the design combines functionality with aesthetic appeal, really enhances the experience, I think, for both the farmer and the community and the customer. I also think the layout's really easy to navigate, which I like, and so I think overall it really enhances the community space. So I like it. A couple of just things for consideration. It looks like there's a bike rack where there's one today at the driveway on the north side, and then I think there's a bike rack you have at the front of the building. I wonder if you can put bike racks at both of the stairs so that there's racks at every entrance.
We'll definitely make a note on that one.
And then the other thing that I had is, so one thing I did like about the previous design where there were kind of small gathering spaces within the larger gathering space, and I liked on the rendering on the front cover, the hill is kind of amphitheater seating. I really like that. I don't think it's in the plan the way you have it, and I'm guessing cost and things like that are all part of that. But I think maybe a phase 2, that is a great enhancement to the space. As someone who has little kids, we're always looking for the same thing whenever we're out in public, right? Besides food and toys, it's bathrooms, somewhere to sit, to tie shoes, to eat our snacks, shade, shelter from the storm, things like that. So I love the amphitheater. The other thing that I thought about for this space is instead of the tents and the, like you said, kind of the hodgepodge of tents that it really will be, kind of like the Eastern Market or other farmers markets, Ann Arbor I think has it too, where they have the permanent pavilions that provide shade, where you could still have parking spaces, but you could also have it covered all the time.
You're singing
Again,
a song
phase
of my
2,
people.
maybe a phase 2.
We've got a grant request in with the federal government, and if that comes through, it's, at least this person, we'd 1 vote for that, so.
Okay, so again, just some ideas. The other thing I thought of is I really liked, you had the swings, and I think there were some picnic tables that had kind of permanent umbrellas, or it might be not the right word, maybe some lights even. I know there's parking along 2nd Street where the farmer's market is today and the other. I wonder if maybe in the future, again, phase 2, those could have more permanent sitting areas. Because even on the rendering, I think it's the 2nd page of the site plan, there's the shades, and then you have a lot of not permanent sitting areas. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope those do. And then again, the parking areas, I would be in favor of less parking spaces to have more of those swings and like amenities again for us families to sit under and shelter.
Message received loud and clear, and I happen to agree with you. So our approach, the first time versus this iteration of the project, we didn't want to get too cute with it, if that makes sense. We want to just get the bare minimum and get it going and then sort of grow into it. Really didn't know what to expect and how it's going to evolve. And as I told our board, let's just get it, and the community is going to tell us what they want, right? So the things that you talk about this evening, we've heard a lot, right? So they're definitely on our radar screen. Budget is as long as we got money, we're going to spend it. We put everything that we make back in the district. So the whole idea here is to create that special place. So iteration 1, probably not, but certainly near to medium term. How about that?
Mr. Chairman, can I just throw something in? One of the considerations also was the pressure from the public, that's a free parking lot. And if we were gonna do some of the things we were gonna do, to put a post up to make a permanent shelter, you're gonna lose 20% of the parking. I agree, we all agree. We don't have an obligation to give anybody free parking, but this was that balance for right now, until they figure out how is the space best used. Ultimately, if we turn it into a no parking in a great community space, I think you'd see a lot of people happy, especially if it was somebody else's money, but.
There was a plan way back in the way day where we had a ice rink in the middle there, so.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember
So
seeing
stay
that.
tuned on that, but all good ideas.
No, not on the ice rink. No, don't.
And if this helps too, our plan right now, again, because we did lose that seating when we aren't able to close the lot, when we're not programming the stage, we have roll-out picnic tables that we're gonna put up there, so there'll be shelter and places for people to sit and things like that. So, we're kind of fashioning some of our space after, I don't know if you're familiar with Magnolia, in Waco.
Yeah.
That they utilize their stage as a day space when it's not programmed with seating areas and planters, and then that rolls back and transforms into a different kind of concert venue. So we're trying to use as much flexibility as we can to provide those elements that we had to lose for budget.
Hence the big doors.
Hence the big doors, so I can get all those things in and out, because again, they're just the 3.5 of us trying to muscle things out, but we're tough, we can do it. Lots of wheels.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional questions, Mr. Mayor?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen? Okay, so we would,
Can I make one point of
of
feedback?
course you can.
I support everything Commissioner Clauser said. Great feedback. So many things to love and be excited about, so thank you. And the only thing I just want to mention is those doors, I'm sorry. It's all I can look at. I don't know if you can come up with something a little different. I worry about the depreciation of the material and it just looking old and unmaintained, if you will. Does that make sense? My only feedback.
Yeah, I think so. Well, first of all, I think everybody knows pretty much that we would never let that happen, because that's what our job is, to make the downtown beautiful, right? So, but that notwithstanding, if there is any other, it's always cost versus benefit, right? So, to the extent that there's something else out there, you could do some pretty crazy barn doors or something, I have no idea, but from an efficiency standpoint, a roll-up steel door, it's architecturally, it actually looks, if you look at the way that the thing is drawn out, it's designed to look like Eastern Market, an old brick building, right? So you would expect to see those type of doors in that environment, so I think that's why the architects went with that.
Correct. It was the industrial look that we were aiming for.
And I will promise you that every year in our budget, we will make sure that they're beautiful.
All right. Commissioners, any further questions? No. Okay, so we'd be looking for a motion to set it for public hearing at the August Planning Commission meeting. Okay. Is there a motion?
I can motion.
Okay.
To set it for
Ms.
public
Clauser,
hearing for
support.
August.
Okay, and support by Mr. Bachman. Any discussion, council people? None being heard. Mr. Peckins, the roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
your
guys.
time and effort. We appreciate it.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to
very
bringing
excited.
you something to be proud of.
No, we know that. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on, line item 6B. This is consideration of a zoning ordinance amendment, section 800. Mr. City Manager.
So I'm gonna have Mr. Crott, I think you're up there, there he is. He's gonna take you through this also. From time to time, when we are faced with situations or looking for patterns in the zoning ordinance, we find things that are confusing, we can't explain them, we try to clean them up one at a time. Knowing that by the end of the year, I committed to the city council that we would get the zoning ordinance to match the new zoning districts, and as we finish that process, all of the intents basically are gonna be rewritten. On the Solar Onyx project that was approved, the rezoning last Monday from the city council, it was a real thorn in one of Mr. Smith's side that I just don't understand the wording up here. I don't know why it's there. We couldn't, all our research, we couldn't figure it out. It was easier to take it out so there's no confusion moving forward, which wouldn't open the door for anybody to misuse it against us. Even though our legal attorney, our planner said, we're not worried about that in the intent section of the ordinance. It wasn't a rule or regulation, but we're gonna clean it up just like we've done other sections. So if, Jeff, you wanna go over that a little bit, what it is? It's really removing a sentence, is what it is.
Absolutely. Mr. Vice Chair, if I may?
You may. Go right ahead, please, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. So before you is, I have a memo just explaining essentially what Mr. Banda just said. The project at the Solaronics property brought out a question from the resident regarding section 800, which is the intent section for RM1, multiple family residential, and simply says that there's reference to the intent to be developed under the standards of RM2. Like city manager said, we're not really sure why that's in there or what the purpose is, but we also don't find it to be useful. And if one member of the public feels it to be confusing, it was enough for us to all take a look at it to make sure we're all on the same page. So, as the manager said, that project moved forward, got approval for rezoning, so that project is moving forward. But we still wanted to do a cleanup, if you will. So before you is an ordinance amendment to section 800, subsection A, which simply removes one sentence and which references the standards of RM2. And since this is so then the intent would just refer to what RM districts are meant for. So that's kind of a transitional situation is what the planner and the manager we talked about at city council and at planning commission before that. And so before you is the ordinance amendment to strike that second sentence. And then because this is a zoning ordinance, that's why it came to planning commission and not city council first. The city council does know that we're moving forward with this and is in support of this cleanup effort. But we need to go through the proper channels on how to do that. So the proper channels would be for you to take a look at it, listen to us talk about it, and then to set this matter for a public hearing, which is required for a zoning ordinance amendment. And when it comes back, then if the planning commission wills it, it would go to the motion would be to move it to city council, and then city council ends up taking their actions to make it law. So the request tonight is simply to set this matter for a public hearing at the August meeting, so that planning commission can hopefully move it to city council with a favorable recommendation.
Mr. Kratt, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Banda, do you want to add anything? No? Okay, I'll open up to the commissioners. Commissioners, any comments? Ms. Clauser, go right ahead, please.
As a new member of the Planning Commission, can you remind me where we're at with the master plan and the process or the next steps for getting it codified, I think is the next thing to do into our zoning ordinance?
Lydia, do you want to take a shot or you want me to?
I can try answering that question.
Okay.
I actually recently sent over an email that had a memo attached with, I'm sorry, I thought my camera was on, apologize. I sent over a memo to the Planning Commission sharing the next steps that were outlined and how exactly we are going to implement the master plan. If you give me a second, I am going to pull up the memo on my screen. So the Planning Commission is aware of exactly where we are in the approval process. Master plan.
Well, Lydia's finding that, then ultimately then we have to change the zoning orders to reflect the new districts, the intents, all the rules, things like that. So there it is right there, yeah.
So if you would see the memo on your screen, we had a meeting with Nick and Jeremy at the McKenna office on March 8th, and we basically discussed the next steps in the implementation of the master plan. So at this time, we summarized that the Planning Commission has had public hearings and has recommended the text of the following districts that are listed over here to the City Council. These have already been through the Planning Commission and had their public hearing, but they have not yet been placed on City Council's agenda. RM1 and RM2, those two districts, the Planning Commission did have a discussion, but they never got placed for a public hearing. So once the goal, as was discussed initially, was that the Planning Commission will listen to RM1, RM2, have a public hearing on them, make a recommendation to City Council, and then City Council will consider all districts together en masse. That was the plan. Once the new districts are adopted, the city will consider adoption of a zoning map, which will replace the current zoning map. There was a lot of discussion on whether this should be done organic, parcel by parcel, wait for individual property owners to request, or can the city just, it's one way to do it cleanly is to adopt a new zoning map, so all your new zoning districts will be effective at one time, instead of having all your old districts and your new districts and waiting for individual property owners to come and apply. This will also ensure that any obsolete regulations are taken out of the ordinance in one go. So if the new zoning ordinance map is adopted en masse, it will make some existing uses in the city non-conforming. So we did an analysis. That was the intent of the meeting that was held at the McKenna office. We literally went by all major areas of the city, property by property, and tried to figure out which are the major properties where we will end up changing the zoning designation of the parcel if the new master plan recommended zoning map were to be adopted. And a list of the properties over here are the ones where the zoning will essentially change. This list is about as comprehensive. I would not say that there might not be one or smaller parcel that may not make it to the list, because it's almost impossible to cover every single parcel, but we have done our best to, with the city's help, to identify all the parcels. So the master plan implementation process, it's actually went on hold for the past several months because we had many big projects come through. We had the Rewald Market project at Water Street corner. We had next to the mills, we had that project come through. We had the granary, the preserves, the 210 diversion. There were just a lot of big special projects that came through, and those projects take up a lot of the Planning Commission's time and effort. In addition to that, the Planning Commission also had to listen to concept plans for some other parcels. For instance, the one located on Main Street, the old laundromat area, you listen to concept plans for that property. So since those projects took precedence, once a formal application is submitted, those projects need to be processed first under the ordinance rules. So the master plan sort of got put on the back burner. So at this time, if we have to kickstart the process again, the Planning Commission needs to hold a public hearing for RM1, RM2, make a recommendation to the City Council. We will have a workshop meeting for the City Council and new PC members also to basically go over an update on each of the districts prior to placement on the City Council agenda. It is a lot of information to put in front of the City Council in one go. So a workshop before that to go over each of these districts for the benefit of the Planning Commission members, some of whom are newer and some of whom it's been a while since you saw these districts. So you will go over all of the districts so it's fresh in your mind. Then the City Council will act to adopt all the districts. Then the City Council needs to make a decision on how you're going to adopt. Are you going to adopt a single zoning map, or are you going to just adopt the zoning districts and leave it to individual property owners? That's a decision the City Council will have to make. Once that is done, we have to update all other relevant portions of the zoning ordinance. Once new districts are adopted, you have to update the schedule of regulations, the sign ordinance, any supplemental district regulations. You need to make sure that other existing portions of the ordinance don't contradict the new regulations that are adopted. You have to do a complete review of the zoning ordinance. And then you would remove or rescind any obsolete portions of the zoning ordinance. So the last 5 are the steps that you will have to take to kickstart this process again. We are happy to help when we get direction from the city on how you would like to proceed. I would defer to Nick because Nick is aware of all the projects that keep coming before the Planning Commission. You have had a lot on your plate. So anytime the city wants to restart this process to get it moving faster, we are happy to do that.
Thank you, Vidya.
Nick, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say if we can get RM1 and 2, because I don't think we were looking at any changes in those basically, we could get those here even starting in August, and then get those 2 out of the way, and then get the big ball moving with the council and the workshop. Sooner the better.
It was this time last year, I believe, that we were meeting, that second meeting of the month and doing all those.
So then
And
in the
it's,
summer we
it's
took
it's a
that
heavy
off.
load. Listen, I get it.
It's a heavy load.
And then there's a lot of projects in the queue again.
Of course.
That are being, big ones that are being reviewed right now. So it almost takes a second meeting of the month, but we're not gonna get that in the summer.
No. And
So.
I guess, first of all, did you have further questions? Please, go right ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I don't have further questions, just maybe some more comments and thoughts. I guess if we are, there's still a process to go through for the master plan to get it, right, implemented, if you will, into our zoning ordinance. And I guess I'm wondering why maybe we should be pausing on removing certain language now and wait for that direction or wait for that path forward, because to me, the way I read that sentence that's being suggested to be removed, that does align with the direction of the master plan. And so it feels like if we're taking that out, we're taking potentially a step back from where the master plan is headed. And then I also heard you say, Nick, that all the sections, the intent sections, are going to be rewrote anyway. So again, why are we just taking out a sentence now then? Why not wait?
There was an uncomfortable moment for a resident that said, by reading that, a developer could come back and try to allow RM2 to be built in RM1. We don't see it that way, but the compromise was, take it out. We've done it before. Take it out. It's a process, and just clean it up, make sure there's nothing that anybody can fall back on. So, and again, if RM1 and RM2, other than that sentence, don't need their intents changed, we're not gonna necessarily change them. So this isn't it's to fulfill a promise that was made at city council. And it's not unusual. We've done this all along. If we run into a problem at ZBA where 3 times the same thing is asked for, we go back, don't wait for the master plan. We've been waiting 5 years for this, so at some point you have to do something. So this is an easy fix, and we can't explain, it doesn't follow the master plan. Why would you ever have an intent of a RM1, it has 2.5 stories and 35 feet, to go to the RM2 standards, which has 8 stories and 60 feet? It doesn't make any sense. We don't want that even to be misconstrued. That's a bad statement. Don't know why it's there. We've never dealt with RM1 before, so.
Well, the master plan actually lowers the standards of RM2 to 6 stories. It also creates a mixed residential in replace of RM1.
But RM1 is not, we might as well have one RM then, that just does what you want with the charts.
Well, that's kind of what it's doing, the way I read it, is like simplifying our zoning. And
if we go that route, right? So we haven't done the RM1 and 2 yet, so might not get there.
Mr. Mayor, do you have a question? No, do you have anything further?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in thinking about this, I'm not saying I'm against this change, but it does seem like we have all this stuff to go. Why are we taking this out now? Kind of picking this one and that one. We, to me, need to look at a holistic thing. So I'm not sure I support doing this, not because it's maybe not right, but it's just why this one. And I mean, I know we had the Solaronics thing.
Is it a
why
timing
this
issue?
one is why this one as opposed to not another one? And if we're kind of looking at the whole thing, why don't we just wait and look at the whole thing?
Okay.
Would be kind of my opinion.
Gentlemen?
I mean, fair points. Is this necessary for Solaronics to where it doesn't sound like it? They're gonna fulfill their site plan, which conforms to RM1. So I don't know that this came out of Solaronics, but isn't required for that, so.
Staff didn't recommend this, we're just working with the council.
Sure.
But it does seem highly administrative to me. I have no problem supporting it from that standpoint. And we can always address it when we address those other things, so I'll proceed how everybody wants.
Mr. Kenzik, comments or thoughts?
Well, I guess the way I see it is, one, it appears to be nonsensical or a contradiction, if you will. So from that perspective, I think we should probably clean it up. And even if we're going to be making other changes down the road, what we do now does not appear to be inconsistent with what those changes may be down the road. So I think we should clean it up while we have the opportunity.
So seeing it as to kind of get in front of it now versus dealing with it later.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts or changes? And no, there's no pressure. I'm just
I mean, all we
trying to
have
get a
tonight is just a
temperature, yeah.
public hearing. The other commissioners will be here at that night. You can deny it, say unilaterally,
Right.
we don't need it, that's fine, but tonight it's just,
So to your point, I want to make clear, so this is not to approve it, this is strictly to get it at a public hearing in
input.
August, for the public to comment on us and for us to maybe go back and do some further research and have the opportunity for the other commissioners to attend. Based on that, and I've got my own feelings about this, and I see both sides of this argument, I truly do. If I'm the fulcrum here, I've got balances and checks on both sides. I appreciate the fact that this is a de minimis issue, and I think it sincerely is a typographical error. I stand by the fact of what was discussed at City Council last week, that this has no bearing on the project that's anticipated over on Woodward there at the Solaronics. That being said, I do have a slight bit of discomfort singling this one out versus looking at the whole thing in its entirety, but I'm not persuaded one way or the other. Those are just my knee-jerk reactions that I have right now. So that being said, for the limited purpose of getting this on a public hearing in August, I would say yes, I would support that. I have no comment, and I reserve any and all rights as to whether or not I would say yes or no. Is that the lawyer answer that you're looking
Yes.
for?
That's fair
it,
for all
yeah.
of you. I think
That's how I look at it, because that's the issue before us. Strictly, are we gonna put this for a public hearing, up or down? That's it. So but because of the number here, we would need 5 people, or is it 3 to do? Because we,
so you need 5.
so we would have to be a unanimous vote to get this on to the public hearing in August. Okay, so I guess is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and the motion is to set this matter for public hearing in August.
Yes.
Okay, is there support?
Support?
Okay, support. Discussion,
So it's just for a public hearing.
just for strictly public hearing.
You're not committing to yes or no, agree or
Yeah.
disagree.
Okay. Okay, so, roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Okay, so, thank you. So just to be clear,
That's it.
this is, all it's doing is we'll revisit this issue in August, and that'll give us time to kind of go back and do our independent research and talk to city. Can any of us reach out to you, Mr. Banda?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, that would be appreciated. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, that looks to be all of the issues under number 6. We will then move to line item number 7, which is miscellaneous. Mr. City Manager.
Again, there's just, Jeremy, if you know, the couple off right, we have Dakatalas being reviewed right now. We have the corner, the old Moon River Soap Company is being reviewed right now.
The ones that we just set for public hearing, so the gram and the payment in lieu. We have another cafe that might be bringing me drawings tomorrow for another payment in lieu of 1 space, I believe.
I think it's 2, yeah.
2 spaces.
That's the one, we just went to court over it today, the one that he put the tables in. We told him he couldn't, he had to pay in lieu, he didn't do it. Went to court, Attorney Crott let him know, we're serious, you just can't keep breaking the rules, so apply for your pay in lieu or get rid of the tables.
Right.
So I suspect he will be on August, asking for a public hearing in September.
Until then, is he supposed to have those tables put away?
Correct.
Attorney Crott may be able to comment on that.
Yeah, we just did, yeah, it's, yeah.
That's it.
I think that's it.
Can you give us an update on any of the ones that we've approved in the past 60, 90 days and kind of, shovels in the ground, anything like that?
So I believe the Rewall project is not going to go forward. I think you're gonna see a 3rd iteration of that. The market partner backed out. Sad for that site, but it could be something really exciting that even Frank's excited about in an adjacent area that we would accomplish what we were trying to do. So he would come back, I think, with a 3-story building, office and then residential above it. So that would have to start over through the process. He understands that. 120 South Main, Chief John's been working with the owner there. It's still got weeds. It's ridiculous.
It's the dry cleaner?
Yeah,
Okay.
so the dry cleaners is out now, not part of it. All we can do is control each one of them individually. So he's met with the owner. They have to the end of this week to cut the lot, clean it, tear the building down, do something. They keep saying, no, we're gonna bring in a tenant now. Okay, bring it to the planning commission. So a little frustrated with those people. LeChurco, both of them on South Street are diversion. We are meeting with DEQ. We've become the favorite child of DEQ's Brownfield group. They got a big influx of more money to the state, so I have a meeting next Thursday with them and Solaronics for $1 million grant to the city to help clean up Solaronics, which got that over the top. Now, Oakland County has helped Mr. Randazzo get $1 million grant. They're applying that, which will get him going. He's already got drawings in here being reviewed. And then Mr. LaChurco on diversion, he also got approached by the DEQ to help clean that site up because there's enough there that needs some assistance. And we're meeting with them, I think, next Wednesday, to talk about another $1 million grant to the city. So all those things will help trigger these guys getting going. Randazzo's got literally building plans in here. Dr. Tala is trying to get his finalized. That's a very complicated site because of the structure that's not in good shape. So a lot of engineering has to go. And Doc's got to spend some money, which he is, on an engineer to get that finished before Vidya can actually combine the two. Because if engineering says you can't do what you want to do structurally there, it's going to change the way the site plan looks. So we're working our way through that one. The Moon River should be pretty clean. That's pretty straightforward.
That's a question.
Yes, you may.
So,
Oh, the
so
great,
like
yeah, sorry.
with LaChurco, I mean, he didn't, what if he doesn't get that $1 million?
I don't know.
He never said.
No, he's not asking for a brownfield. He was just, anybody that, when somebody says, we're gonna give you $1 million for free.
He didn't
know it at the time, so.
He's
there
either
there
paying
wasn't
out
$1
of his
million
pocket
available.
or he's gonna get the grant.
And so the environmental engineers are always looking for those kinds of things, so he didn't even know about it, hadn't planned on it, but he's going to try to take advantage of that. Of course, that would help him. So he had committed to do 251 diversion first, and then this is to help clean up the big site, which is independent of the other site. So I was anticipating continuing to go.
Not to be cynical here, but it's like, how can you not, the site next to it was contaminated. How could LaChurco not think, oh, maybe there's a chance?
Yeah, it's not, it's different levels of contamination. It's what they're doing to clean it up. So they're not strict brownfields. They're opportunities that DEQ, whatever's in the ground there, he identified that, but he said, I'm not gonna ask for a brownfield. They knew it was somewhat dirty, but they're gonna eat the cost of it. If they can get somebody to give them $1 million, I guess that they'll move forward, so.
For the Atala property, is that a special project?
Nope.
It would just be straight up?
Yep.
Okay,
Right? Is it a special project? No, it's straight up, yeah.
straight up, okay.
Can I ask about one that
Of course.
I don't want to open a can of worms here, but was brought up, I think one of the first meetings could potentially come to planning was the admin building. Just wondering where we're at or
Yeah,
what's.
so, no, that's when I went by there today, they just cut the grass, so, don't know, they're gonna put it out, they have the new superintendent, I think, Mayor, that's sad. I'm sure pretty quickly they'll move that forward, but we don't know. We backed out, we don't have any interest in it, so officially, so they will put that to market. Met with 2 developers, actually, that are looking for adaptive reuse of it. One of them's got a lot of experience, he's already reached out to the school board, and I think soon they'll probably put it out for RFPs and see what we can get going. And another one that we approved, the community house,
That one's,
yeah, it's already been approved. They're gonna come back, they are gonna come back, that's the next one, in August, to change 2 of the dormers on the roof. Virtually, that's it. But maybe some recent good news that I can't say officially that would allow a little more funding. So then they could go back to, let's put the basement in and do it right, possibly. So that's why that's not started yet. They got a funding opportunity that they're gonna know about pretty quick here, so.
Okay.
A lot of these things, they're creative financing. It's frustrating that they don't start. And actually another one, so Deluso that we
Yeah,
approved.
I was just gonna ask you about
on the
that
corner of Highland and Main, after watching the success across the street that Mr. Schneider's now sold most of those units, Mr. Deluso came in and said, maybe I'm missing the boat here. I shouldn't have office on the second floor. I should have condos on the second floor, 2 or 3 of them. 3 of them. So he's gonna come back and ask for that. No difference. Building looks the same.
Right.
But we need a special exception for upper story living. So he would come back with that.
very nice plan.
It's a beautiful plan, yeah, and it's less parking even needed than office.
Okay.
So,
Does he have to start over?
yes.
Site plan?
Yep.
Okay. Questions for the city manager,
Yeah,
gentlemen?
always moving parts here.
Okay. Any other questions for city manager? Any other bits? Okay, that's good. Okay, then moving on, finally, the public comment. Anyone would like to make a public comment on anything that was discussed? Now's your time.
No one's online.
Okay, all right. Well, with that being said, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.